A crew chief from one of the most well-funded teams in American motorsport opened his laptop in the garage last season, pulled up Shane Van Gisbergen's telemetry data, stared at it for a long moment, and then looked up and said something that stopped the room cold. "We can see everything he's doing. Every brake trace, every throttle input, every foot movement. We can see all of it. Beat. And we still can't beat him." That moment is not a rumor. It is the reality playing out inside NASCAR garages every time the Cup Series lands on a road course. Shane Van Gisbergen has been in full-time Cup racing for barely a season. He has already turned road course weekends into a near-personal competition, and the most elite, data-rich teams in American motorsport are openly admitting they cannot figure out how to stop him, not because they cannot see what he is doing, but because they can see it perfectly and still cannot match it. That gap between knowing and doing is now driving a conversation inside NASCAR's own walls that nobody is officially willing to name out loud. Once you understand what that conversation is really about, you will never watch a road course weekend the same way again. SVG's road course dominance in the Cup Series began at the Chicago Street Course in 2023. Wet race, Cup debut, immediate win. The garage's collective reaction was dismissal. Perfect storm. One-time miracle, won't happen again. But the miracle did not stop. Road course win after road course win followed. Watkins Glen, Sonoma, the Circuit of the Americas. Every result made the same uncomfortable question louder inside the paddock. Teams went searching for the engineering explanation. Maybe Trackhouse Racing had unlocked a setup nobody else had found. Maybe the Chevrolet package suited SVG differently. But the more teams investigated, the less those explanations held up. Because the biggest surprise was not that SVG had an advantage, the biggest surprise was that nothing about it was hidden. Before we go further, if you are watching this on NASCAR Racing Central, we are closing in on 1,500 subscribers, and that milestone belongs to this community. If this breakdown is giving you something real, hit subscribe, drop a like, leave a comment, and share this video with every NASCAR fan in your circle. Every single action helps this channel keep delivering exactly this. And right now, before we get into what NASCAR may be preparing to do, drop a comment below. Should they leave SVG alone, or does the rulebook need to change? We are reading every single one. NASCAR's SMT data system makes every brake trace, throttle application, steering input, and shift timing visible to rival teams after each session. Rivals were not guessing where SVG was gaining time. They could open a laptop and watch it happen in numbers and graphs, corner by corner, pedal by pedal. Journalist Jeff Gluck stated it plainly. Everyone has access to NASCAR's SMT telemetry. The mystery isn't what SVG is doing, it's why nobody else can consistently do it. So if every team in the garage could watch exactly how Shane Van Gisbergen attacks a road course, why was nobody copying it? Why was one of the most data-obsessed sports on the planet staring directly at the answer and still coming up empty? Because the answer was not in the data. The answer was in something the data could describe, but could never transfer. Every modern Cup Series driver operates on a single standard: left foot braking, always. The next-gen car's sequential-style transmission does not require clutch input for gear changes. Left foot parks on the brake pedal. Clean, predictable, universal. Shane Van Gisbergen does not operate that way. He right foot brakes. Simultaneously, he rolls his foot sideways, blipping the throttle with the edge of his shoe, while his left foot works the clutch at the same moment. That technique is heel and toe. It is as old as motorsport itself, standard across international road racing, and nearly extinct inside modern NASCAR. On the Dale Earnhardt Jr. download, SVG explained it in his own words. "It's normal to me. I always right foot brake and heel toe. It's what I've grown up doing." This produces 3 measurable advantages. First, rear tire protection. Feathering the clutch on corner entry disconnects engine drag from the rear wheels for a fraction of a second. No driveline shock loading the tires mid-corner. SVG's rear tires stay alive across long runs, while his competitors' tires are quietly degrading. Second, corner rotation. As SVG described it himself, as you get to the brake zone, the clutch would be out as you turn in, and it would help the car to turn. He is using the clutch as a rotation tool. Everyone else is simply pressing a brake pedal and hoping the car responds. Third, throttle response. Heel and toe matches engine revs perfectly to each downshift. No upset, no lurch, exits that build speed from the apex all the way to the next braking zone. Dale Earnhardt Jr. observed how SVG uses the clutch to reduce drivetrain shock, stabilizing the rear tires under heavy braking while improving corner rotation at the same time. The result is not just later braking, it is smoother tire management and more controlled exits that compound lap after lap. Connor Zilisch, one of the few young drivers considered a future match for SVG on road courses, identified the exact same thing. It's how little he abuses the tires. That's what wins long runs. What followed inside the garage was something almost unprecedented. A sequence of the sport's best drivers openly admitting they tried to copy SVG's technique and failed. Joey Logano arrived at Watkins Glen with a plan to right-foot brake all weekend. He abandoned it in practice. His own reflection. Experimenting with new techniques is one thing. Making them natural under race pressure is another. That's why SVG stands out. Ross Chastain, SVG's own Trackhouse Racing teammate, tried it. He described constantly falling back into old habits because decades of instinct overrode conscious thought the moment the pressure rose. I can do it for a corner or two, then muscle memory takes over. That's why Shane is so hard to beat on road courses. Kyle Larson, one of the most naturally gifted drivers of his generation, was blunt. You don't just relearn years of driving habits overnight. SVG has mastered something most of us didn't grow up doing. The most layered admission came from Denny Hamlin. Hamlin acknowledged he actually used to right-foot brake. He won the Mexico City race with it years earlier. Going back to it now, after decades of racing another way? I understand what SVG is doing. Learning that style after decades of racing another way? That's a whole different challenge. Think about what is actually happening here. The best drivers in American motorsport, men who have collectively won hundreds of Cup Series races, are openly admitting they know exactly what Shane Van Gisbergen is doing, can watch it in data, can study it on pedal cam footage, and still cannot make their own bodies replicate it under race conditions. Garage Talk Pod said it directly. The scary part for the field, NASCAR's telemetry lets everyone study SVG. They still can't duplicate the execution. And that is when the conversation inside the garage stopped being about technique and started being about something far more uncomfortable. NASCAR has never stayed still when one competitive edge became too dominant. When Hendrick Motorsports cracked a suspension geometry advantage in the early 2000s, the rulebook changed. When the 48 car became nearly impossible to beat on intermediates, the rulebook changed. When one manufacturer began pulling clear of the field, the rulebook changed. Adjusting the rules in response to dominance is not unusual in this sport. It is its oldest competitive reflex. 3 theories are now circulating inside the paddock. First, a standardized pedal box, fixing pedal spacing in a way that makes heel and toe execution harder or removes any custom arrangement, giving SVG additional precision. Second, eliminating clutch input entirely on road courses, moving to full paddle shift with no clutch input after launch. If the clutch cannot be used mid-corner, the rear tire protection advantage disappears entirely. Third, the most drastic option, and one SVG himself referenced on the Dale Jr. download, changing the differential specification. In supercars, a locked diff made the technique a necessity rather than a bonus. In the next-gen Cup car, an open diff makes it a devastating option. Change the diff spec, and the entire equation shifts. Pit Road Buzz framed the confirmed reality. Rule changes? That's fan speculation right now. The verified story is simple. Shane's technique is legal, visible, and incredibly difficult to master. End quote. And yet RaceHub Daily noted that if SVG keeps stacking road course wins, the competitive balance debate will grow louder, regardless of whether NASCAR ever touches a rule. NASCAR's own verified account posted publicly, "Talent isn't illegal. Shane Van Gisbergen continues to showcase elite road course skill, and every competitor races under the same NASCAR rulebook." Official statements are one thing. What happens inside NASCAR's R&D center in Concord, North Carolina, is another. In this sport, it has almost always been what happens behind closed doors that eventually rewrites the rulebook. Stock Car Fan 88 put one side plainly. How can something be unfair if everyone knows exactly what he's doing? Talent isn't cheating. Road Course Guru identified the real exposure. SVG isn't exposing a loophole. He's exposing how specialized modern NASCAR drivers have become. And the athletic NASCAR named the core difficulty. SVG's advantage isn't hidden engineering. It's decades of experience and refined technique. That's a much tougher gap to close. Then there is Connor Zilisch, 19 years old, already competing at the Xfinity Series level. Someone who grew up watching SVG compete and can approach road course driving with entirely different instincts than veterans locked into decades of habit. Is the real answer not a rule change, but a generation change? And if that is true, how many road course seasons does the current field spend falling further behind while that generation fully arrives? SVG himself addressed it quietly. People keep talking about my feet more than my driving. It's just the way I've always raced. Nothing secret, just years of muscle memory. Nothing secret, just years of muscle memory. That single line, from the man at the center of all of this, is somehow the most unsettling part of the entire story. Because if it truly is just muscle memory, if there is no loophole, no hidden engineering, no exploitable trick, then what is NASCAR actually supposed to do? You cannot legislate away 20 years of a driver's life. You cannot write a rule that erases skill. And you cannot unring the bell of a garage full of elite drivers who now openly admit they cannot match what one man from Auckland, New Zealand does with his feet through a road course corner. The question hanging over every road course weekend from here is not whether SVG will win. The question is what happens inside NASCAR's boardrooms and inside its rulebook if he simply keeps doing exactly that. And right now, nobody, not the teams, not the officials, not the media, is ready to answer it. If you enjoy real NASCAR breakdowns like this, you'll like what's coming next. Comment below, level it or let him cook, because this debate is only getting louder, and we want to know where NASCAR's real fans stand. Share this video with a NASCAR fan who has not seen this angle yet. This is the story that the sport is not talking about openly, and it deserves to be heard.